Hi everyone, welcome to our Tech Talk. Me and my team members created this Android application called Accountability Buddy app. So the problem we noticed is like during the beginning of a year or the beginning of a month, you get very motivated to start tracking your habit. And there is a ton of habit trackers out there. But eventually, after a couple of days, you sort of lose the motivation and completely delete the app and completely forget about the habit. So, to solve this issue, we thought of creating an accountability buddy application. And what the application allows the user to do is creating a habit, but when you're creating a habit, you're also assigning a buddy to that habit. The buddy sort of like reminds you through text notification or app notification of when the habit is due. And once you actually complete the habit, you take a picture or you create some sort of evidence to submit to your buddy in order to claim points.
The Code Tracker app is a mobile application for Android, and the programming languages used are Java for registration and login, JavaScript for calling the API, Kotlin for the rest of the application.
So introducing the team, my name is Klanti Islam. I was responsible for the backend and also Android integration with backend services.
Hi, my name is Yousry. I was responsible for designing the frequency styles and manipulate the data from the user to make it ready to be sent to the API. I am also implementing the MVVM design architecture for the application and cast the data into SQLite database using Android RAW.
I'm Daniel Chatman. I handled the registration and sign-in for the app. And last but not least, our mentor was Pete Bakos. This slide is an overview of the tools and technologies we used during our project. As you can see, the backend portion of our project used Firebase, Node.js, Express, and JSON. The front-end portion of the app used Android, Kotlin, Java, MVVM, Material Design, Android Room, and Retrofit. Firebase is a tool that helps with app development by providing services such as analytics, authentication, push messaging, and many others. In our app, Firebase was primarily used for authentication purposes. The snippet of code shown uses Firebase to create an account after the user inputs certain information and that information is deemed valid. Firebase can also be used to manually add or delete users, change passwords, and set up other features. The plan is to use Firebase to allow Google and Facebook login in the future.
Material Design is an Android-oriented design language library created by Google. Using this library, clean and modern-looking UI can be built very quickly. So once the user logs into the application, this is the page they see. I used Material Design to create the bottom navigation so that by clicking on these icons, the user can switch between pages or fragments. And by clicking on the side navigation, the user can see other information such as FAQs. Node is an open source cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment that executes JavaScript code outside a web browser. And Express is a web application framework for Node. Using Node and Express, I created endpoints for the API, which returns JSON data to get displayed on the XML of the app. In the code snippet, you see that the first thing is I declared an Express variable. And then later on, I created this get request on the endpoint /evidence, which returns imported data, which is a file of type JSON that has some mock data. So what is JSON? So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. The purpose of JSON is to send data from the server to the client so that it gets displayed. So initially a fake API was hosted on Heroku, which had some mock data as you can see in the snippet, so that when we make calls, it returns these data to get displayed on the application. once the API was hosted, I used Retrofit API to do get and post requests from the app. Retrofit API is a library for Java and Android to make REST calls. Json library converts JSON data from Java object. So in this snippet, you can see that I declared a variable called API, which is of type retrofit. This holds the base URL. The base URL is the URL of our hosted API. And then through this JSON converter, I convert the JSON data to Java object. And once the API returns the value or the list of evidence gets saved in our call variable.
The design architecture of this application is MVVM, which stands for Model View Model, that facilitates the separation of the view from the development of the model, so that the view is independent on any specific model platform. For the model, we have user, goal, habit time period, and evidence. For the view, we have goals fragment, evidence fragment, and for the view model, we have evidence and goal. The room persistence library provides an abstraction layer over SQLi. The library helps creating a cache of the app's data on a device that's running the app. This cache allows users to view a consistent copy of key information within the app, regardless of whether users have an internet connection. We persist the data at 3 tables: evidence table, goal table, and habit table.
This was the initial design for the project, and although it was basic, the majority of ideas made their way into the finished product. For example, the homepage does have big goals with smaller habits underneath. We also added a lot of things, such as the navigation bar and other fragments such as the evidence page. Additionally, we dropped some things such as the calendar view due to time constraints.
In this slide, I would like to point to some cool code that me and my team members thought was very genius. So this is a pull request made by our mentor. So in the application, we initially created some hard-coded data that was living in the main activities, but later down the line, our mentor suggested to create an extension method that holds all these data. Because if we are calling this fake data from multiple sources, there can be a mistake. So if you're calling the fake data, that can live in a separate method of its own. And we thought that this was a pretty genius trick because as junior developers, we don't think of these things, but it was a good insight into a cleaner way of coding.
Throughout the project, there were many lessons learned, both on the team and individual level. At the beginning of the project, the team had to learn how to communicate with each other and allocate tasks. We accomplished this through the use of Slack for stand-ups and Trello for tracking tasks. On an individual level, I had to learn about the importance of using up-to-date code. I ended up finding a guide on working with Google Sign-In, only to realize that most of the code was deprecated after trying to implement it. After that experience, I made sure to check if any sources were deprecated before investing too much time into them.
The next lesson is collaborating through GitHub, understanding each other's code, and reviewable requests.
I personally learned the power of research. So when you start a program, you have so much energy and you want to start coding from the very get-go. But our mentor was able to channel that energy into the right directions. He suggested we make wireframes and we also download as many habit or goal tracking apps out there and to pull inspiration from as many as we possibly can. And once we had all those wireframes, we had the mockups, we were able to get a clear vision of the application, and after that, we actually started to code. So looking into the future, we all plan on being the awesome team we are and continue developing future features and development. Some of the possible future features are inviting your friends so that you can appoint them as your buddy. Power to the buddy, which means once you complete the habit, only the buddy has the ability to tick the habit off or to mark it as done. And lastly, notifying the user and the buddy about when the habit is due and also when an evidence gets submitted. This is our team contact info. As you can see, we all worked around the globe. Lastly, from my team's behalf, I would like to thank Ote for having this incredible internship and also to our mentor Pete for all the help. Thank you so much.